God. But I'm not in the business of making personal judgments about the psychology of atheists, about what motivates them to disbelieve or what motivates people to believe. We need to get away, I think, from making these sorts of personal assessments or personal attacks, and just stick to the arguments and the evidence and not speculate about people's personal motivations for what they think is why they think as they do.
Okay.
Dr. Craig, speaking of arguments and evidence, you defended the claim that everything that begins to exist has a cause of its existence, and you defended the claim that the universe began to exist. But how do you get from the claim that the universe has some cause of its existence to God exists? Because the concept of God is very specific. We have God has various attributes. How do you get to the attributes of the cause rather than just some random cause?
Excellent question. What we need to do then is a conceptual analysis of what it means to be a cause of the universe. And we've already started to do that in our discussion tonight when we began to ask about the relationship of this cause to time. And what we concluded together was that if there is a cause of the universe, of space-time itself, that cause cannot itself be in time. It must transcend time and therefore be timeless. Moreover, I would argue, it must similarly transcend space, since it created space in creating the universe. So we've already got to a cause which transcends space and time and therefore exists atemporally and aspatially. Now that is a conclusion of enormous significance, because what that implies is that this cause cannot be any sort of material or physical object, because physical objects exist in time and space. This must therefore be an immaterial, non-physical reality, which transcends space and time and which brought the universe into being. Moreover, we know from the argument that there cannot be an infinite regress of causes, so this must be an uncaused being, which is beginningless in its existence. Since it brought the universe into existence without any kind of material cause, material substrate, it must be enormously powerful, if not omnipotent. So we're already to a cause which is beginningless, uncaused, timeless, spaceless, immaterial, and enormously powerful. Now, I want to add the coup de grace, which is that I think it has to be personal as well. Why is that? Well, what kind of entity can exist timelessly, spacelessly, and be immaterial? There are only two kinds of things that philosophers can think of that would fit that bill. One would be an abstract object, that is to say something like a number or a set. These exist timelessly and spacelessly and are immaterial. The other would be an unembodied mind, that is to say a pure consciousness without a body. Now, given those two alternatives, it follows that the origin of the universe must be due to an unembodied mind. Why is that? Well, simply because abstract objects like numbers don't stand in causal relationships. That's part of the definition of what it means to be an abstract object, is that it is causally impotent. The number 7, for example, has no effects whatsoever. And yet we know this cause has brought the universe into being. And therefore it follows that this cause is a personal consciousness, personal mind without a body, which has brought the universe into being. And therefore we get to a concept which I think is very significant theologically, because this cause has some of the central properties of the classical conception of God.
Well, Doctor, we go into break in just a few seconds, I think, here. We will be going into the next two arguments, fine-tuning and more arguments that will be coming up after the break. So again, just a reminder for you that are out there, please consider calling us at 248-416-1300. and we'll get you right on the air as soon as we can. The lines are open, so keep that in mind. And we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back, and we'll be waiting for your calls on Exposing Atheism tonight at ABN. Thank you. Well, welcome back to ABN Ministries here. I'm Brother Chris. It's Friday night, July 9th, and you're watching live Exposing Atheism with Brother David Wood and also our guest via Skype, Dr. William Lane Craig. We're halfway through the 4 arguments of God's existence, and we are grateful for God's existence, and we're going to be going into that. Before we get too much further, I did want to take the opportunity, a couple of quick announcements, as we do here often on our programming. Again, thanks for tuning in. Be aware that next month, August 12th, there'll be a live debate. Reverend Tony Costa and Osama Abdallah, who is a man that represents with Islam. That'll be coming up on August 12th at 8 p.m., and we're looking forward to that. So it's about a month away or so, and we'll have weekly debates coming up in August. So the debate continues, the arguments continue. So why don't we, again, make note of the phone number on the TV there, 248-416-1300. We're going to transition into the next argument, which is fine-tuning. David, talk to us.
Yes, so it seems based on Dr. Craig's first 2 arguments, we can conclude that that the universe has an explanation for its existence, and that that we must go back to some sort of necessary being as the cause of the universe, as the explanation of the universe. And his second argument would show that the universe has a cause, and that the cause has to transcend space and time and has to be personal. But it seems we're missing a couple things from God's nature, and it looks like the next 2 arguments can help us fill in some of these gaps. And the next argument that Dr. Craig has listed, the argument from fine-tuning, this is interesting to me because I sort of learned this lesson. Never left me when I was a little kid. I was maybe 7 years old, and my friend had a fish tank. He was about the same age as I was. He had a fish tank, and there was a thermometer in the fish tank to make sure that the temperature stayed just right. And we kind of used that thermometer to try and attack the fish. So we were launching this thermometer into the fish tank to try and hit the fish. And eventually we cracked the thermometer, so it was no good anymore. And so he tried to keep the temperature about right, and within a few days all the fish had died. So what I learned then was you sort of have to keep the environment just right. You have to keep that fish tank just right, or the fish aren't going to make it. They cannot exist. And there's a sort of a similar idea to the argument from fine-tuning, namely that our universe has to be just right, or we wouldn't be here, or other things in the universe would not be here. They could not exist if the fundamental constants and principles of physics and nature were not just where they are. So, Dr. Craig, if you could go ahead and go into the fine-tuning argument.
Yes, that's a very nice analogy, David, from the fish tank. What scientists have been stunned to discover in the last 50 years is that the initial conditions of the universe, given in the Big Bang itself, were fine-tuned for the existence of intelligent life in this cosmos with a delicacy and complexity that is literally incomprehensible and incalculable. It appears that from its very inception, the universe has been fine-tuned for the existence of intelligent life. And these fundamental constants and quantities are such that if they were altered by less than a hair's breadth, the balance would be upset and intelligent life would not exist anywhere in the entire universe. These are universal conditions for life on any planet, anywhere in the entire cosmos, because these are conditions given in the Big Bang. Now, there are only three explanations available for this remarkable fine-tuning: either physical necessity, chance, or design. And what the argument says is that the best explanation of these three is design. That when you look at physical necessity and you look at chance, both of those explanations are explanatorily deficient in various ways, and therefore it follows logically that the best explanation of the fine-tuning of the universe is intelligent design. And therefore there exists a designer of the entire cosmos who transcends the universe and the laws of nature and has designed the universe to be life-permitting.
Now, could you give us a couple of examples, if people aren't familiar with this argument? What sort of things are you referring to when you say that if things were changed, even a hair's breadth, we would not be here?
Well, take the four fundamental forces of nature that are known to contemporary physics: gravitation, electromagnetism, the atomic weak force, and the atomic strong force. These four forces govern all of physics, and yet these forces have to be fine-tuned or intelligent life could not exist. For example, the weak force, which operates within the atomic nucleus, has to be finely tuned to 1 part out of 10 to the 100th power. And if you were to alter it, either stronger or weaker, by just that tiny amount, this life-permitting balance would be destroyed and intelligent life could not exist anywhere in the cosmos. Another example would be the ratio between the mass of the proton and the mass of the neutron. This ratio between the masses of these two subatomic particles has to be incredibly fine-tuned, because if it were different, the balance that permits life to exist would be destroyed and there would be no life anywhere in the universe. Indeed, this fine-tuning is such that if you were to upset the balance, there wouldn't even be chemistry. There wouldn't even be matter, much less planets where life might evolve. So the consequences of upsetting this balance are just truly disastrous.
So for viewers, for many of our viewers, this will be relatively new information. So let me go ahead and explain where we're going with this. Think about a situation where you could only be alive. You'd only be alive if some astronomically improbable things occurred first. So suppose some psychopath comes up to you and says, I'm sending you in a 7-Eleven. You're going to buy 1 lottery ticket. If you win, I'll let you live. If you don't win, you're dead. You'd probably think, all right, I'm dead. This just isn't going to happen. So suppose you go in there, you buy your lottery ticket, and you win. So you don't get killed. If it had been anything else, if any other set of numbers had come up, you'd be dead. You'd be pretty surprised there, but you probably think, wow, I'm really, really lucky. I'm really, really lucky this time. What luck. But suppose he tells you to do it again. All right, go do it again, buy another lottery ticket, and if you win again, then I'll let you live. But if you don't, I'm going to kill you. Now, suppose you go in again and you think, wow, what are the odds that this is going to happen again?